Hello, today is the 28th of February 2022. I'd like to discuss today the subject of the power company again. This is a subject that I have discussed many times because it's so egregious, so disgusting, so abusive and outrageous that I just reiterate and bring it back every once in a while because it's just repetitive, and time and again I keep getting abused, used, and pummeled by the power company. And I suspect I'm not the only one. I suspect many of you, perhaps most people, working people, people of low to even medium income, I believe they are also victims. They suffer from this fact where their power company basically takes advantage of them. I have brought evidence and arguments that the power company charges people according to their income, their area where they live, which very much it is an indicator of their income, the value of the property, the land where they live. That is how they charge. They don't really, as they claim, they don't really charge you for what you use. They claim they charge you for the power that you use, and this may be true in a very limited sense, but the rates basically are the ones that determine how much you pay. I have also done studies, trials, analyses that have taken weeks, months, and I have basically proven that the power company overcharges you. Even when you take in consideration the amount of energy that you use, they charge you a more or less flat rate according to the month of the year and the expected power that you are expected to use during that time of the year. For example, for the winter time, they charge you high power bills, power rates, because they claim that you're using a lot of heats here in North America especially, and they charge you a lot because of that. That's their claim. In the summertime, they charge you a lot because they claim that you're using a lot of energy because you're using air conditioning. And in the spring and autumn or fall, when temperatures are okay, they still charge you high because their rates go up, and even though you use less energy. So you pretty much are charged a more or less equal amount with very little deviation. There's some deviation, yes, but very little, and it has very little to do with the power that you actually use, because again, I have basically looked at and analyzed the power that I have used for months and in specific times of the year, and I have seen that they have charged me more than what I use. They estimate the amount of power that you will use, and they charge you accordingly. They don't really look at live data as you would think they would be able to do by now and charge you accordingly. That the amount of power that you use for that month, for the month that you're being charged for, is basically an estimation. For my experience, it's an estimation that they come up with according to the average that your neighbors use, the average that citizens in that area use. And then they add some more to their convenience. Not only that, but the power company also charges all kinds of fees, including some mysterious fees that you basically don't know what they are. Some fees dealing with construction of power plants, maintenance of power plants. I even have a fee in my last bill, and perhaps all of the bills for this year, last year, and who knows how long. I have a fee about a recuperation of construction funds for nuclear plants. If you live in this area, you would know that there have been massive amounts of budget overruns with the construction, the botching, the debacle of nuclear plants. I believe that there are at least one, maybe more than one nuclear plants that have been in construction for years here, and their budgets have been overrun dramatically. And their mistakes, their debacles, their botchings are basically paid for by people like me, people like you, and anyone that pays electrical bills, certainly in this area, in this backward state. And it was last bill, I gotta say, it was the highest bill I ever had. Yes, it is the month of February. But this, if you live in this area, this is the southeast area of the country of the US, you will know that February has been among the hottest Februaries on record, if not the hottest on record. We have had in the month of February about 3 weeks 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks of very warm weather, very pleasant weather that hasn't been freezing, hasn't been cold during the day. The temperatures have not plummeted too cold during the night. It has hovered over freezing, basically over 32 degrees Fahrenheit at night. It has been 34, 35, 36. Very rarely has it dipped below freezing at night during the month of February, and even in January we had about a week or even more than that was quite warm, and temperatures have not been too extreme. Yet I get the highest bill I've ever had since I've lived in this area. They claim that I used about double the amount of power that I use on average for the month of February, which is an absolute outrage, an absolute lie, an absolute abuse. This is getting out of hand. That's why I believe the power company and its monopolistic power that is given to it by the government is outrageous. It is egregious. It is just abusive, and it has taken advantage of that power for decades, if not longer, in this area. The power rates are outrageous right this moment, and it has very little to do with any kind of geopolitical occurrences here nationally or internationally. This latest surge on the cost has been nothing but speculation and just artificially done by the powers that be, investors, whoever, the market itself, because that's what the market does. It changes prices depending on how it feels the future will be. They believe they are oracles. They can tell the future, and using various methods of estimation and predictions, they raise their prices accordingly. And we, the people, we, the poor, the working folks, the ones that have to pay the bills or else, are the ones to suffer. And when I say have to pay the bills, I'm not talking in a hyperbolic way. I'm talking really literally. We have to pay. We are obliged. We are obligated to pay. We are not given a choice. In most communities here in the U.S., in most urban or suburban communities, you have no choice. Even in rural communities, for that matter, you have no choice to have power or not. You have to have power. You have to pay your share for the power company. Whether you use the power company's power or not, you will have a power meter. You will have electrical lines run to your place, and you will have to use electrical power for that place, home, building to remain habitable, according to most laws, most counties, most cities that I know of here in America. So it is a matter of obligation for you to have power, and they have used this despotic power that they are given and abused it and taken it to extreme lengths to make you pay whatever rates they claim that you should pay. There is no hearing, there is no votes, there is no warning, there is no notice as far as I can tell, as far as I am notified that rates will change. I am given zero choice as to voicing any concerns, any opposition to any rate hikes. And even if I did get that, which is very buried under all kinds of fine print probably somewhere, it is useless. It is for the most part useless, because they know that the citizens have next to zero power to make any difference. They don't make it clear that they are going to raise power rates and the reasons why. And it is not, again, up to the citizens to allow or not allow that power hike to occur. They leave it in the politicians' hands, the people in government, which are bought and sold by the power companies. Many of them have stakes, have shares, have interests in the power company. That makes it corrupt, makes it a corrupt system, makes the situation have a lot of conflicts of interest. And this is legal. This is not against the law here in America. And although it's clearly a conflict of interest for a politician that has power to approve or deny any power hike to have interests in the same industry that he or she has stakes or investments in, gets to decide whether they can charge citizens more or not, They can legally have shares. They can legally have interests, financial interests in these power companies. This is disgusting. This is outrageous. People are not given a choice. They're not even given a choice of companies. Even though they are obligated to have power, they're not even given a choice between two companies to have their power. They must get their power from a single power company. You're given no choice. There is no choice. You will have power. This is what you're being told. And not only will you have power, but you will pay for your power. Not only will you pay for your power, but you will pay for your power to one company that is assigned to you. What kind of democracy, what kind of free society is it that makes their citizens have to pay for anything? That is not freedom, my friends. That is not freedom at all. If you're being told that you will pay for something, that is a feature of a monarchy, of a dictatorship. That is a requirement of a country that is ruled by a despot, by a dictator, by a authoritarian. That is not something that should exist in a democracy. You should not be made to pay for anything. What if you cannot pay? What if you are disabled? What if you are unable to pay at any given point? They do not offer any kind of alternative when it comes to people that are not able to pay. For you to get any kind of help, any kind of funds to pay for that mandatory bill, it is next to impossible. It is very difficult to get any kind of funds. Those funds are usually very limited to only probably a few hundred people out of perhaps hundreds of thousands that may be unable to pay at any given point. Only a few hundred or a few thousand individuals may be able to access those funds. Those funds are also subject to massive amounts of corruption, massive amounts of foul play by the people that receive those funds. It is just egregious. It is just outrageous. It is something that has been happening for many generations and appears it will continue to happen. That is why I advocate for living off the grid, being off the grid, basically turning your back on that corrupt and abusive system, which is the power grid system. Power grid system has been in bed and involved with the government for many generations, again, in most U.S. cities. And it is something that is corrupt to the core. It is something that basically has no saving, has no reforming, has no fixing. It must be let go. It must be demolished and abolished and be let go, be turned your back on. And in its place, I believe a free off-the-grid system should take its place. I believe solar and wind today could take the place of the current grid system. Yes, there must be a lot of concessions made. There must be rules and regulations put in place, but it is very possible. We have companies now, left and right, that are attempting to do something like that, although very far from being an off-the-grid system. They have solar companies, solar roof lease companies that will supposedly replace your power bill from your power company to the solar company's power bill. But I believe this is very much a fallacy because they really do not get off the grid. For one, really, they do not take your power company off of the situation. They very much remain. The solar company takes over your bill, takes over your account, and they pay it for you. That is not the solution. The solution, in my mind, is removing the power company altogether. Taking your financial support from the power company altogether. That $300, $350, $400, $450 bill that you're paying to your power company would be burned, banished, abolished, stopped. It would cease to exist. So you would not pay the power company any money. In its place, you would have solar power, solar energy wherever available, wherever possible. And where not possible, then you would have wind power, which many areas of the country do have the availability and accessibility to wind power. Most areas in the United States are capable of producing enough solar power to power up a home. I believe this to be true 100%. From the southernmost tip of Florida to the northernmost tip of Wisconsin. So probably some exceptions in Alaska. The whole continental United States is able to produce enough solar power energy to power up a home. Of course, with varying degrees. Of course, you're not going to get as much sunlight in Washington State than you would in Southern California or Southern Arizona. There's just no comparison. Yet, you can power up a home in Northern Washington State, very much so, by using a lot more panels, by using a different inclination angle for those panels, and by using a lot less electrical energy for that home. There are many alternatives to your electrical energy, your alternating current energy, your AC current coming from your wall socket. There are many alternatives for that. There are many alternatives to energy that generates heat. There are alternatives for that. There are alternatives for cooling systems, heating systems again. There are alternatives for cooking equipments, washing equipment. Everything within the household could be ran by solar generated energy, wind generated energy, and even geothermal energy. I have discussed many of those before, many of those technologies, many of those concepts. The abuse must stop. Power companies will only jack up their rates every once in a while for very little reason other than their speculation, their estimation, their thinking of the future. And as fossil fuel resources become more scarce, more costly to access, so will your rates. And this is unsustainable. This must stop. And the laws and rules and the power companies and the way that you must pay your bill must change as well. It should not be obligatory to pay your power bill. It should not be obligatory to have power from any one power company. That is just despotic. That is just not of a free nation. Give me your comments on this, what you think of this, and do comment on if you have looked at your power usage and how that compares to how much you're getting charged for your power. Again, it is mandatory to have power in most regions, most areas. Even if you use zero power from the power company, you will still pay a power bill every month. That is just the sad truth and the sad situation that we find ourselves in today, and it has been going on for generations. Thank you very much. I do look for your comments and do look to attract your attention once more in the future. Thanks.